Today we are going to be making all kinds of apple products. We're going to do some apple jelly, spiced apple jelly, applesauce, chunky applesauce, apple pie filling, and apple butter. If you are new here, my name is Chelsea. Welcome to Little Mountain Ranch. And if you've been here before, welcome back to the kitchen. Friends, I am jumping in here to share with you something so exciting, and that is that the Little Mountain Ranch membership community doors are officially open. I have been getting so many messages from you guys over the last couple of months saying that you are wondering when we're going to open, and now we are officially open. And not only that, but we're offering a free month so that you can come and trial the membership and see if it is a good fit for you. You'll have full access to everything that we offer. We have an amazing forum where people share daily there, gardening and canning and cooking from scratch. We share recipes in that forum, and it is such a fun place. We will also have access to our weekly calls. We get together twice per week on Monday for office hours, where you can just jump on a call and ask questions that came up for you between that time and the time we met before. And then on Friday evenings, we have a call that is usually more topic specific. We also have a Q&A element of that call as well. When you first sign up for the community, you also get an opportunity to book a one-on-one call with me. And that is a time for me to be able to get to know you and find out how it is that we can best serve you in the community, and we can best get you to the place where you can have the best garden or the best pantry or the best meals being cooked for your family as possible. Also, to put your mind at ease, there is a wide variety of both ages of people in this community and skill levels. So we have people in their late 20s all the way to their late 70s. And if you're in your 80s, you're also welcome to join. I don't know about you, but when I first started doing canning and gardening and all this kind of old-fashioned stuff, which doesn't seem like it should be old-fashioned, but it kind of is these days, I found it a little bit isolating because there just wasn't a lot of other people out there like that. And that is something that I have heard from you guys, that it's so nice to be able to connect with people who kind of get it. And this community is exactly that. We get to jump on a call every single week with other people that are just into the same stuff that we are. And it's very encouraging. It's very inspiring. And I would love to have you join us. If you are shy, friend, don't worry about it, because there's a lot of members in our community that when they first joined, they didn't really say much or post much or anything, but over time they have found that this is just such a welcoming place, and they've been encouraged to come out of their shell a little bit and share in the community. But even if you know yourself well enough to know that's not your thing, but you want access to all the information, we have an extensive library with all kinds of questions that have been asked over the last year since we opened the doors of the membership, where I've created videos and PDFs to answer those questions. All of the calls that we've recorded since we started the membership are also in the library, so you can go back, and we have them titled by topic, so you can go back and check out all of those different calls. And same with the forum, you can go through and read everything that everybody's been sharing in there. And there's a lot. So there's a lot of fun stuff to be able to go through. So if calls are not your jam, that is totally okay. I understand that. It actually took me doing this kind of work to get over my shyness for public speaking and speaking in front of other people, because believe it or not, that is something that used to put me into absolute sheer terror, the thought of doing it. So anyway, I really hope to meet as many of you over there as possible. I'll put the link down below this video in the pinned comment and in the show notes, and you can click that and head over and learn all the details about what we offer in our community, and I hope to meet you there. Now we'll jump back into the video. As you can see, we've made some progress already in the kitchen. My family pitched in this morning to get all the apples peeled and cored. We have a nifty little machine. It's a manual machine. It's actually an antique. Well, the machine itself is not antique, but the original design has been used for a really long time, and it peels and cores and slices your apples all at once. It doesn't slice them in half, but it slices them, whoops, this is a very soft apple. It slices them like this. So to get the actual slices, you can just slice it in half. What we're gonna do is start with getting a big pot of apples cooking down to make our chunky applesauce. I already have skins and the cores in my steam juicer over there because we're also going to make some apple juice as well, and we're going to use some of the juice that we're making to make our jelly with. So that's been happening in the background over probably the last hour. It usually takes about 45 minutes to an hour to steam juice apples. This is the steam juicer over here. So the fruit goes in the top, the juice collects in this middle part here and then comes out of this tube, and the water goes in the bottom and you just simmer it. I will say you need to be very, very careful when you take the juice out of here because it is smoking hot. So one of the things that I usually do is put something to elevate whatever container I'm going to be putting my juice into, and then just run this right in so I don't have to be holding anything. Over here, we have apple slices in all three of these bowls and the one over there, and I just added a little bit of citric acid. I actually ran out of lemon juice. I would normally use lemon juice, so I added a little bit of citric acid, covered them with some cold water. Even with the little bit of citric acid that I added to this water to stop these from browning, they are still browning a little bit. I actually ran out of lemon juice, so I had to rely on the citric acid. So I want to get these into the pot and start cooking down right away. I just had the plate on here to help weigh them down under the water a little bit. These are Macintosh apples, so they're very naturally sweet, so I'm not going to be adding any extra sweetener to these. So we're just going to pop these right into our pot here. And you'll notice there's a few little skins on these apples. That's fine. I usually will use my immersion blender and it just blends them up. I don't like too many skins on them because during the canning process, they kind of get a little bit tough, similar to the way tomato skins do, but even more so. So I do like to try to get as many off as possible, and that little manual peeler does a pretty good job. So many apples. I don't even know how many pounds of apples we did. But I'm gonna get this filled right up. I actually didn't make any applesauce last year because my family's kind of grown out of eating a lot of applesauce. I still use some in baking, but I really miss not having chunky applesauce last year because I add it into oatmeal, I use it in muffins, even just plain. Sometimes I like to heat it up and add a little bit of brown sugar on the top and a little bit of cinnamon. And so yeah, anyway, I decided to make a big batch. So let's do, I think that's probably good there. I'm just gonna add a little bit of water to this just to prevent scorching on the bottom. And our apple juice here is actually done. So I'm just gonna push this back there very carefully because it is so hot, and add this pot, I think, yeah, we'll add this pot over here. And because these are in those rings, they're all attached together like this, I want to make a pie filling out of this. So I'm actually going to grab a knife and just go through and cut these in half. When I do my pie filling, I've shared this before, I never make pie filling with thickener in the pie filling itself. So basically it is canned fruit. This is the same for my peaches or any other kind of pie filling, blueberries. I just make a medium syrup, and then I can it, and then I add my thickener, my cornstarch or whatever I want to use as a thickener after when I'm going to make the recipe. And I find this really doesn't take any extra time. It's nice because I don't have to use, and I always mix these two up. Do I usually say Sure Gel, but I don't use any of the canning thickening agents that you can use. I just can mine in a medium syrup and then add the cornstarch when I'm going to make the pie or whatever I'm going to make with it. It makes it really easy to can it. And then I don't need to use any of any other ingredients, just apples, a little bit of sugar. Sometimes I'll add some seasoning into it. So I think I'm gonna add a few more because that's not enough. Oh, so many apples, oh my goodness. What kind of apples do you guys like using for your pie filling? Honestly, I use whatever I have on hand. I grow about 6 different varieties of apples out in my forest garden. but I just kind of mix and match whatever it is I have. And when I'm buying apples, I buy whatever's on sale, and that's what I make my fillings out of. So this one is a Macintosh, these ones I think. And then I have a Norland apple that I actually have to peel some of those as well. So I think that's probably enough, because I did do quite a few cans last year, and I still have a few in the pantry. These were in the soaking water, so I'm just going to rinse them off and fill it with some fresh water. For a medium syrup, I'm going to add just under equal parts sugar to water, and I'm using organic cane sugar here. Organic cane sugar does have a little bit of caramel color to it, so if you're using it in canning, just be aware it'll tint whatever syrup you're making just slightly caramel. I love canning with apples because it is so easy. There's not a lot to it, and you can make a ton of different. I love canning with apples because it is so easy. For one, for making the jellies that we're going to make, we don't even have to add added pectin because apples are naturally high in pectin, and they're naturally sweet, so you don't have to add a ton of sugar. This is pie filling, so we're adding a fair bit of sugar to this. But for applesauce, generally you don't need to add any sugar to it, or even other seasonings, unless you want to add a little bit, like I said, those warming spices that go well with apples. So now all we're going to do is bring this up to a boil and cook these a little bit. We want to blanch the apples a little bit, because when we're canning them, if we don't blanch them first, they'll float in the jar, and then you'll get a ton of liquid on the bottom and all the apples kind of floating up at the top. So if you blanch them for a little bit, that solves that problem. So now for our apple butter, we're going to get everything cooking down at once here, so that when it comes to the canning process, I can move everything off the stove, set up a couple of canners on here, and get everything through really quickly. We are going to be using a roaster oven for doing our apple butter. And all we need to do here is put our apples in here. For our apple butter, we will be adding a little bit of brown sugar to it. Now these apples are so soft. I'm literally being able to just kind of mush them up with my hands. Probably not the best apples to use for the apple pie filling, but that's all right. I have changed my mind because I'm not going to be doing a huge batch of the apple butter, just a small batch. I'm going to swap out my roaster oven. This is, I think, a 25-quart roaster oven, so it can do a ton. You know what? I've changed my mind here because I'm not going to do a huge batch of this butter. So I'm actually going to get my crock pot instead. I'm just breaking these chunks of apples apart. My crock pot instead, and do this in my crock pot. All right, into our slow cooker, much smaller, much more reasonable size for a little batch. I'm just going to put this on medium. And it's going to take, like I said, probably 8 hours. Oh, there's my timer. 1 sec. This chunky applesauce is not going to take long at all because these apples are just falling apart. You can leave this chunky the way that I'm going to do it. Cook it down to the texture that you want, or you can cook it down till it's really soft and then use your immersion blender to make it nice and smooth. We are going to add some of my homemade apple pie spice to our apple pie filling. Probably going to add, I don't know, all of it, around 1.5 tablespoons, 2 tablespoons or so. This recipe is in my cookbook if you have it. Our cookbooks were out of stock, but they should be back in stock by the time this video comes out. So if you have been waiting for them to come back into stock, now's the time. I'll put a link for them down below for you. So now we're just going to stir in this, get this up to a boil, and get these canned up. I want these to hurry up so that I can start with the jelly. I'm looking forward to making the jelly. I knew I was going to make some apple jelly, but I decided to make some spiced apple jelly. One of my friends gave me some spiced apple jelly last year, and it was absolutely fantastic. I canned up some chopped up jalapenos in a syrup earlier in the season, so I'm going to be using these to make the apple pie jelly, spicy. So I am excited about that. The combination of apples and spice is just so good. You know, we have so many apples, so I'm just gonna add more to this pot. I think I was a little over ambitious with the amount of apples that we prepped. All these little jars that you can see back here are some cranberry sauce that I canned up this morning. In the last video, I think, I made cranberry sauce with you and I still had 1 bag of cranberries left. So I got them cooked down this morning and canned up all those. I used 1/2 pint jars so that I can use those as gifts during the holiday season. I like giving away home canned stuff. I'm gonna let these cook down and then I'll be back with you when we're going to jar up the pie filling and the applesauce and move on to making the jelly. Okay, I'm just using my immersion blender here to blend this up just a little. And now we'll give it a taste. So that's the texture that I was going for. Some cinnamon. Couple tablespoons. I can imagine that we're going to eat most of this warmed up with a little bit of brown sugar. So I'm going to save the time of adding the brown sugar after the fact and just add it right now. So I'm probably gonna add, for this pot that's about half full, I'm gonna add 2 cups. So just a bit, just enough to give it just a little bit of sweetness. These apples are very sweet, but still could use a little more. Perfect. Okay, now we can get this canned up. Before I got all of this started, I got a batch of bread going in here and my alarm just went off letting me know that it was ready to put into our bread pans. So we have an oat and honey bread here. This bread recipe is such an easy recipe. I do have it over on my blog, so I'll link that for you down below. Once we are done with all of the preserving that we have to do over the next month, we will be getting back into lots of cooking and baking recipes here. Okay, these are gonna go in there. We'll make sure that we debubble, so put something down in there to get the bubbles out because they're packed in there pretty tight, so I'm sure there's some air trapped in there. I washed all these rims off to get the sticky residue off. Now the lid's on and then into our steam canner. So I got 6 quarts of the filling. Okay, let's get our juice out. All these cooked down apple pieces are gonna go to the chickens. Okay, our next batch of cores and peels in. The juice is such a beautiful color. It's almost pink. Apple filling into our steam canner. We're going to steam can, which if you have a water bath canner, it's the same thing, for 25 minutes for my elevation. So you'll just need to adjust the time for yours. I won't set the timer until the steam starts coming out of this. I was originally going to put both my canners on, but I realized I had another batch of juice to do here. So I'm gonna do the juice, we'll can up these, and I'm going to jar up the applesauce right now, and that'll go into the canner as soon as these ones are done. This smells so good. Oh my goodness. I think I might just need to eat some of this right now. Okay, I have just decided that I am going to turn the rest of the apples that I have left in the bowl over there also into more of this chunky applesauce, because this just isn't going to be enough. And then I'll take the apples that I picked out of our forest garden and I will turn that into the apple chips, but I'll probably do that in a few days because there's no rush on those. I am so thrilled with the way this apple butter turned out. It is so smooth and tastes absolutely scrumptious. So I'm definitely going to make more of it because, as you can see, that all of those apples in the slow cooker did not make that much. So I am going to be canning that up in just a minute. But first we're going to put together our 2 batches of our apple jellies that we're going to make. So remember, we're going to make a plain one and a spicy one. And we're going to use the apple juice. I ended up getting this and then a half gallon full of apple juice. And during my community call last night, we were talking about the pros and cons of the steam juicer. And one of the things that one of our members brought up, hi Emily, is that she finds that the apple juice that comes out of the steam canner tastes cooked, and that's because it is, but also has a lot of the pectin in it. So it's a little bit, I'm going to use the word slimy because that kind of works. It's not overly slimy, but especially if you're sensitive to that kind of texture in a drink, it might not be something that works for you. And I don't know if you can tell by looking at it, but it's a little bit thicker than it would be if it wasn't steam canned. So that's just something to keep in mind. Another thing that came up during our call, and Deanna and Bernie both pointed this out, is that this little machine here slices everything, and it is very convenient, but the slices are quite thin. So if you don't have a very dense apple, it can make for a mushier product, especially in the case of apple slices for making apple pie filling. So that is something to keep in mind. They both said that they prefer to hand slice them so that they get bigger slices. I don't mind the thinner slices myself, but that is something else to keep in mind when it comes to this little machine. So I just wanted to mention that. But now we're going to jump right into making our jelly. So we're going to use 4 cups of juice for each of our pots here. I'm going to make both of these jellies at the same time just to save time. One thing that I will say about jelly is that jellies are not recipes that you generally want to double or triple. The gel just doesn't set up as well when you do that. So you're better off to make a series of single batches than you are to try to double or triple them. You can double or triple jam, no problem, and lots of other canning recipes, but not so much with jelly. There is so much pectin in this. I don't know if you guys can see how thick this is already. So this is probably going to hit the gel state very quickly. We're going to be cooking this down with all the sugar for around 45 minutes or until the temperature hits 220 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you have a candy thermometer, you can use it. So we have our 4 cups of juice. We're going to add 3 cups of sugar. This is handy. This is a 1.5 cup measure. Great for doing bigger batches of things. One of the reasons I had to wait to finish up these recipes this morning is because I ran out of lemon juice and I needed lemon juice for these recipes. So we're going to add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice to both of these. And we're going to pop open our jalapenos here. And we're going to add some of the syrup to this. So we'll add a little bit at a time, and then I'll test it until it gets the spiciness that I am looking for. That is such a good combination of flavors. You can feel a little bit of the heat in there, but we're gonna add a little bit more. I don't want the chunks of the jalapeno in there, so I'm just adding a couple of the chunks, not that many though, but just the syrup in there. I've been asked quite a few times over the years about using your own canned recipes to make other canned recipes, and that is completely fine to do, just using common sense around it. So for instance, if I had canned up this apple juice, I would feel totally comfortable using this apple juice in a further canned recipe, things like bone broth, things like syrups, even other canned pickled products like this, using them in other products is totally fine. If you would use a store-bought canned product to make your canned recipe, then it's totally fine to use your own home canned products for canning. Okay, let's try that. Ah, that's good. Okay, that has that good jalapeno spice to it. So now we're going to crank up our heat on both of these. I have my apple butter sitting in the slow cooker over here, and it's still nice and hot. So I'm going to leave that sitting here, make these batches of jelly, and then that way I can can everything all at once. So we're just going to bring these up to a boil now and boil them on, I don't know, a little over a simmer. So a little bit of a boil, but you don't need it to be a really rolling boil, for around 30 to 45 minutes until we hit the gel state. And once we hit that, I'll come back and I'll show you what that looks like if you don't have a thermometer, and how you can tell if your jelly has gelled. What is so cool about this, and I mentioned this yesterday, is that this has enough pectin in it that we don't need to add the extra pectin. And this was something else that I said during the call last night, is I have often, whenever someone asks me what the first thing is that they should try canning, I always say pickles, because canning pickles is kind of foolproof. Most people like some variety of pickled product, whether it be a relish or a sweet pickle or a dill pickle. And they're fairly easy to make. But I've since changed my mind after doing all of these different recipes yesterday. I actually think apples might be the easiest thing to start with, because you can make the applesauce, like the thick applesauce. You could make smooth applesauce. You can make the jellies without the added pectin. Jellies are a little bit more of kind of an intermediate level, I would say, canning project, but still, as far as canning a jelly, apple jelly is probably the easiest. You can make butter, you can do sliced apples in a syrup, or you can make apple pie filling plus lots of other things. There's apple relishes, there's apple, what else is there? Apple jams. There's so many different products you can make with apples. Because they are a delicious fruit and they're so easy to work with, I have now changed my tune, and I will be in the future recommending canning with apples as your first apple project, because it is just so darn easy, as you've seen in today's video. I want to show you this little trick for being able to check for gel, whether your jelly is ready to can up, whether it's hit the gel state or not. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. You can use a thermometer when it's hit around 220 degrees. That's usually good. Or you can test it on a plate. So a lot of people will recommend to put your plate in the freezer to just get it really cold, because it allows the gel to happen really quickly, or for you to be able to see. But if you don't do that, and in my case, my freezers are downstairs, so I don't want to run down there and do that, I actually just put it on my plate like this and then leave it on the counter. And if it has hit the gel state, it will gel up usually within a couple of minutes of sitting on the plate. So this has only been boiling for around 15 minutes. So I suspect that it's not quite there yet, but I just wanted to show you anyway. So what we're going to do, put it on the plate, let it sit. I'm going to run my finger through it like that. And can you see how it filled back in the line right away? So it has not hit the gel state yet. When it does, you'll be able to see, I'll show you, but you'll run your finger through it and it will keep the track of your finger in the jelly, and that's when it's good to go. This is actually, I can feel the pectin in that already, getting almost to that point. So I have a feeling that this is going to gel up really quickly, but I'll be back with you as soon as it's ready, and I'll show you what the track looks like. Okay, so you can see my finger mark. I just tested this one. So we are very close. Can you see how you can see the track in there? But not quite there. So a little bit longer, maybe 10 more minutes. Okay, this hasn't even sat for very long, so I have a little bit of each one. This one, can you see? We're almost there with that one. And this one over here, we are there. I don't know if you saw that, but can you see how you can see my finger perfectly, and it almost crinkles is the word that comes to mind when you run your finger through it. I'm trying to show you this as close as possible. But the spicy one is ready, and the not spicy one just needs a little bit more time. I like to use actual jelly jars or half-pint jars for making jelly, because I find that it sets up better than if you use a larger jar. I'm not sure what the chemistry is in that, but that's been my experience. Once you've made jelly a few times, you'll be able to tell, even by looking at the pot, the way that the jelly sort of starts to thicken even at the edge of the pot. It becomes pretty obvious once you've done it a few times. I don't know if you guys have this experience or not, but this happens almost every time I make jelly, where I either end up with a little bit more or a little bit less than the recipe says that I will. And in this case, I got 3.5 pints. Look at that pretty color of the jelly, of the spicy one. And I'm probably gonna get the same with this other one. So I'm gonna get these all jarred up. This one is now ready over here as well. Now, if you happen to make jelly and it does not set up, you can reprocess it and add more pectin to it. You probably won't have that issue if you are making apple jelly, as long as you follow the instructions exactly, because there's so much pectin in it. And I don't know if I've ever had a batch of apple jelly fail me before. This is the perfect little gifting size for jelly. I think I'm gonna make another big batch of that spicy apple jelly for gifting. I'm gonna get these lidded up and into the canner, and we're going to can these for 15 minutes in my steam canner. And then we are going to can up our butter, and we're gonna can that for 20 minutes. Because I have this apple juice sitting here, and I also have the opened jar of the spicy jalapenos over there, I figure I might as well make up another batch, and this will go for Christmas presents. And then it'll just be done, and I don't have to come back and do it later. I think that this might be the best apple butter I have ever made. Apple butter is going to taste very different depending on the kind of apples you use. So the next batch I make, which will be with the Norland apples from our own trees, will have a different flavor than this one with the Macintosh apples. But with the Macintosh apples, this is so good. So basically you use apple butter the same way you would use any other kind of jam, or as a topping on yogurt or oatmeal, anything like that. And it's so good. Honestly, I could just eat this with a spoon though. It is that tasty. This is so good. Mmm. Wow. I think that this batch of canning that I did over the last couple of days has been among my favorite recipes of the year. By far, the jelly that I made is absolutely fantastic. I am thrilled with it. This is what the jelly looks like. I'm going to try it with some cheese and crackers here. It is so thick and delicious. A little bit of spice, just perfect. So let's give it a try. It is absolutely perfect, but you know what is not perfect is the fact that I still have flies in my kitchen in October. It is the one thing I like about the weather getting colder, is that we don't have any more bugs, but we still do, which is a sign that it has been a very warm autumn, and I'm not complaining about that. So let me show you what we ended up with all together. We have our beautiful jelly that is so gorgeous. I am thrilled with it. Like I said, I ended up with 17 of the little jelly jars, 3 of the half pints. I have 6 of the apple butter, which also looks fantastic. I have 6 of the apple pie filling and 15 quarts of the chunky applesauce. So I am very happy with that. I'm going to stand by that apples are the best thing to start with if you are just learning how to can. If you're getting into canning and you have any questions for me, put those down below this video and I'll do my best to respond to them for you. That will be it for today's video, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed it and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.